The person attending is asking about the climate change conferences. He was saying there were 27 different conferences that took place. Some of them were successful and some not so much. And he's speaking about how it's important to focus on the climate change conference here in Egypt, where it will highlight the Egyptian and the African experience, not only when it comes to climate change, but also when it comes to showing the economic possibilities within the African continent itself. Yes, he's also speaking about how the Asian experience has proven to be fruitful for a lot of the Asian countries, especially when it comes to looking at cooperation amongst them, and that is why they managed to prosper. So he's speaking about the fact that we need to focus not only on the internal prosperity, but also how the president is focused on the African continent as a whole, so that we can all rise together and economically prosper. And he's also talking about how there have been a lot of efforts done by the government in different fields, including the information technology field, health and education, for the prosperity of the country.
شكرا معالي الرئيس على هذا اللقاء. أنا هنا أمثل الاتحاد الأفريقي وليس بصفتي الوطنية.
She is representing the African Union there.
فيما يتعلق بالمواضيع الصحية الكريمة. احنا كنا في اللقاء السابق مع معاليك وذكرت التجربة الثرية في
up in raising them and making them better because of the Decent Life Initiative. She's speaking about how the African countries could learn from the Decent Life Initiative model on how it could raise the living standards of Africans everywhere on the continent, and how we can build a bridge and show our expertise to our neighboring countries. She's speaking about how Egypt has went through several different phases and problems that they faced since the president took office early on a few years back, including problems with the electricity. She is asking the president if there is some way where the Egyptian government can somehow create a model or a way by which they can show or deliver the expertise of the Egyptian experience when it comes to different projects and different economic growth projects such as A Decent Life, and doing this through different agreements between the African Union and Egypt. And she's speaking about how this is not only through sharing expertise, but it could also be done through financial means by providing financing to certain projects within the African continent.
فخامة الرئيس، أود أن أشكرك أولا على منح هذه الفرصة. أنا إلينا بونوفا وأنا المنسق الأممي المقيم هنا في جمهورية مصر العربية. أنا أنسق عمل كل الوكالات الأممية الممثلة هنا في مصر. أولا أشعر بالفخر والشرف وأشعر بالتواضع الشديد بعد أن سمعت تعبير فخامتكم عن تقديركم العميق لبذلناه من عمل من جانب كل الوكالات الدولية ولا سيما الوكالات الأمم المتحدة. أود أن أعرب عن بعض أفكاري ثم بعد ذلك سوف أدلي سؤال قصير للغاية لسعادتكم. أود أن ألقي الضوء أنني
She wants to highlight as a coordinator with the UN how she can help coordinating between different agencies like the United Nations to help in the Egyptian government, for instance, growing economically and socially as well. We have 26 UN agencies working with the Egyptian government, such as, and we also want to talk about the WHO and the funds there. We also have the Immigration Agency and Refugees Agency, as well as the international agencies such as UNRWA that helps within the region to refugees such as the Palestinian refugees, and the judicial agencies as well as UNICEF that provides support to children in addition to feeding people. We extend our support to the Egyptian government and are always dealing with the different government bodies to try to maintain things and make sure that everything is coordinated and focused on the most important subjects. And one of them is the Sustainable Development Goals under the UN agenda, and we're also doing this in coordination with all the government bodies within Egypt, and it is in alignment with the 2030 agenda for Egypt. We're very interested in the Decent Life Initiative because it is very important and very close to our hearts, as it is part of the center of our ideas and agenda when it does to improve the living standards of people living in rural areas as well as people living in substandard conditions. We worked in 54% of the places that the Decent Life Initiative worked with. And we would like to continue working with the government when it comes to initiatives like the Decent Life Initiative and try to take a look at all the villages that have been affected by the Decent Life Initiative.
قوة الأمم المتحدة نعمل مع كل الأطراف في تمكين المرأة.
We also want to work in a lot of things like women empowerment and financial independence. And we're also interested in how the support of the Decent Life Initiative and providing that it provides more success for Egypt and better things to come. And we saw a lot of development projects that are related to making the infrastructure better and making it the agriculture better, as well as information technology. We've seen strides in that as well, in addition to international cooperation. And we hope for a strategic sort of cooperation between Egypt and us in the next phase of the infrastructure building of Egypt. And we'd like to focus on the people who are most vulnerable and needy when it comes to Egypt. And the United Nations is always in support of these people. I would like to also talk about our important partnership with the International Cooperation Ministry that includes a number of different bodies that is under the Minister Rani al-Mashat and is an important support part of the UN agenda. And we're very happy to see that the private sector is also part of this initiative. And I would like to thank you, President El-Sisi, for the efforts exerted when it comes to developing the infrastructure and trying the Decent Life Initiative, as well as hosting COP27. And we would also like to make our cooperation deeper and try to make things better help things better and make Egypt a model for the African continent.
حيال نوعية الدعم الذي يمكن أن تقدمه الأمم المتحدة في هذا الصدد.
What kind of things do you expect from the United Nations when it comes to being able to see what they need? The President saying
دكتورة أمينة
he's going to start with دكتورة أمينة
يعني هذا التجديد وبهنيها يعني وأنا عايز أقول لك إن القطاعات اللي إحنا مهتمين بيها ويمكن السؤال
the sectors that we're interested in
منسقة عمل المنظمات الدولية هنا
and it is related also to the United Nations bodies that we want to give them a push in the future, including industries that are heavily reliant on technology and agriculture, as well as information technology. We need to give a strong push in this field and provide better fruit from these sectors. And these are the focus of the Egyptian nation and government that
يعني بقالنا أكتر إحنا يعني عملنا حصر مكثف وعميق جدا جدا.
We researched and looked into it that what industries are important to focus on when it comes to these fields and how to push it forward. We're talking about trying to increase imports here in Egypt and as opposed to exports, trying to reduce the number of exports, making us producers. And we would like to help the private sector grow and become producers of these things that we export, help them become strong and help in the economic growth. So if we do this in the next 2 to 3 years, we can decrease the amount of exports from Egypt by $30 billion, which is very important for the Egyptian economy, in addition to giving the Egyptian industry a strong push to be strong leaders. We're talking about information technology and the telecommunications sector. We also have a large sector of people and young people where we provided programs for them to train them in this field. The reason we are interested in the field of telecommunications is important in helping us grow. We used to be the number 40 in Africa when it comes to the speed of internet from 3 years ago. And economically speaking, it might not be something very fruitful, but we took the decision to make the internet speed and quality much better here in Egypt, making us the third in Africa when it comes to quality and speed. So we have created a deep infrastructure within universities and schools and has helped us in providing online learning if it weren't for the high internet speed that we've provided in the last 3 years. We have 25 million students who can learn now online. This is an achievement here in Egypt. For a country like Egypt, it wasn't something easy, and we have done quite big strides and achievements, but we're also still working on improving it even more. We're also going to talk about agriculture, and we're going to see in the next 2 years at most, we're going to have 2 million fidans back into the agricultural sector, where we're going to have land reclamation. And it might even be more than 2 million fidans of land reclamation for agricultural purposes. which could be almost 3 million فدانs of agricultural lands in the next 3 years.
محتاجين ان احنا نتكلم فيهم، محتاجين ان كنتوا تدعمونا فيهم.
We need your support in this issue. We need to talk about it some more.
احنا محتاجين كل المؤسسات الدولية أنها تدعمنا وتساندنا.
We need all the bodies and agencies to help us and support us in this field, and we're moving at a fast pace.
يعني بشكل نجيب، بشكل يعني شاطرين يعني.
Moving at a very fast pace and in the best possible way.
كلمة نجيب ما تبقاش مشكلة بالنسبة لنا. النقطة الثانية، احنا مستمرين زي ما قلت في بداية الكلام مع
The second point is we're working and continuing to work with these bodies. And we're going to take a look, and I'm going to answer your question from the African Union. And we're still united, and we are obliged to be part of the African Union and supporting the entire continent. We are supportive of our brothers, and we want everyone in the African continent to feel and be better. We would like to also motivate them to have a better future and extend our help in any way possible. And you can see the projects here in Egypt that each project wasn't only designed to create one certain objective, but several objectives, including certain projects.
أنا بتكلم على الناس البساط يعني في مصر، ما كنتش مهتم يعني الموضوع دوت هيتصرف عليه مليارات كثيرة جدا جدا.
Projects where millions and billions of pounds are being spent in projects
السلبي اللي حصل خلال ال100 سنة اللي فاتوا.
To surpass the last 100 years of negative effects.
مش فقط بيئية.
When it comes to climate change and economic growth.
أنتم أكثر علما وأكثر خبرة. أي مشاريع هتتعمل.
Any project that will be created will not have one objective and effect on one certain point. When we're talking about the infrastructure in Egypt or in Africa, if there isn't, for instance, electricity, then we won't be able to turn on lights, and we won't be able to see climate change as well.
منذ 5 سنوات من 2015 وحتى
since 2015
المسؤولين
with all the people who are in power. When we talk about Africa in the last 5 years or during certain conferences or in personal speeches, I would like to say that U.S. agencies who are concerned with improving the life of people, that Africa deserves everything we have to offer. And you can see the conflicts within everywhere. And as long as things keep the way they are, then we're going to continue to see conflicts and terrorism within the continent. And as you can see, this is where the chicken or the egg comes first issue. But we won't wait until we find out. But we're going to try to support them and talk about how they can improve, and also talk about how things are more clear when it comes to combating corruption as well. And I'm inviting the international private sector companies to come and support in the provision of mega projects within the African continent. But here in Egypt, I would also like to say we're willing to participate and cooperate and support all the African continent as a whole.
نتكلم على موضوع الأمصار. إحنا من الأول قلنا إن إحنا في مصر لدينا البنية.
We spoke about how Egypt has the infrastructure to create and develop the different vaccines, and we could easily provide these vaccines to the rest of the continent because we have the availability and the industry to do so. We're just waiting for these vaccine companies to provide us with the ability or the green light to do this.
التصنيعية لإنتاج اللقاحات
We have the ability to produce 2 vaccines, and we're right now actually producing 2 different vaccines that we can help in supporting the African continent. And we're hoping that the international medicine companies will give us the green light to do so we can support our brothers.
كدولة مع الدول المعنية بهذا الأمر. يتبقى سؤال المناخ.
The next question is about climate change and what we see in the future.
باقتضاب في اليومين اللي فاتوا أو امبارح تحديداً على إننا
Yesterday I spoke about how humans are the only species that can fix what they destroyed.
أنا مش شايف.
I don't see.
مش شايف ومطمئن. مش شايف إيه؟ مش شايف إن إحنا مش رايحين للبناء
that we are not heading towards fixing and rebuilding, but I have complete confidence and I am not afraid for the future. From the biggest nations to the smallest nations, we are heading towards rebuilding and fixing the climate issues and climate problems. And I would like you to remember my words when I say that things are going to get better. When humans see danger,
على إجراءات
when humans see danger, we face it as a whole, like we've seen during the pandemic, where everyone was affected by it, when we all were unified under the umbrella of the fear and danger of a pandemic.
الخمس سنين اللي فاتوا دول توقفت يمكن شوية أثناء يعني الفترة بتاعت انسحاب دولة كبيرة منه. I
believe that the force of a push towards rebuilding and fixing the climate change issues and handling it is going to be something important and something that's going to persevere despite the setback in the last 5 years, because certain countries had opted to leave the climate change conference. And I'm sure the world will do what is necessary to prevent the issues of climate change. I said that the private sector is going to actually be able to see the opportunity to help conserve the environment and prevent climate change. Like the electric cars that we're going to be creating in the next 8 years, it's going to produce economic gains, massive economic gains. Can you estimate it?
يعني ده تقدير واحترمه. لكن عايز اقول ان لما الناس تجد الفرصة.
This is when people find opportunities and ways of opportunities to help, even if it's towards climate change, doesn't mean that things are going to stall. But there are opportunities within this field, and this is just one example, like electric cars. There is profit there. This is billions of cars around the world, a big business for anyone who's going to get into this sector. I am very, very optimistic about what's going to happen. Not that the conference itself is going to be successful, but also that the humans around the world and people around the world are going to be positive and resilient and are going to do what is necessary to prevent climate change.
هل ممكن استأذن حضرتك في استقبال 3 مداخلات أخرى؟ تفضلوا.
And now the next 3 people are going to ask questions.
زميلتي كلمت، أنا بتكلم باسم المنظمة ومداخلتي إشادة طبعا، لكن قبل الإشادة فيما يتعلق بأهداف التنمية المستدامة.
I want to talk about sustainable goals. For the first time that the pandemic has affected the sustainable development goals worldwide, where it has actually regressed rather than grown. We've seen this a real regression within trying to achieve the sustainable development goals, and has increased the poverty rate within the world itself.
التعاطي المصري مع ظروف الجائحة.
But we've seen the Egyptian model where Egypt has handled, despite the COVID-19 pandemic, how they have still managed to continue on with the sustainable development goals and prevent the increase of poverty, in fact, raising people's lives. And this is something to be proud of. And this is something you should be proud of as the President and the entire government as well.
برجاء الاختصار.
أدرك تماما أنها في ذهن صانع القرار المصري، ولكن زي ما مصر أصبحت مركز فيما يتصل بإنتاج الغاز في شرق
As Egypt has become a major gas hub,
أن تكون مركز.
I'm hoping that Egypt will also be a hub for creating renewable energy and producing it as well as exporting it to neighboring countries.
شمال أفريقيا
North Africa is able to produce 100% or 100 times more of the renewable energy that is necessary to fuel and light up Europe.
قطرة وإن شاء الله في بحر من هذا الخير.
شكرا جزيلا. السؤال اللي بعده.
شكرا سيادة الرئيس.
السؤال اللي بعده. السؤال الثاني.
اديله فرصة يقول بس السؤال الثاني أو النقطة الثالثة يعني.
النقطة الأخيرة يا فندم وسيادتك ومصر مدركة والصف الأول من هذا الاجتماع وهي قضية تمكين المرأة.
And most important is women's empowerment is an issue that our research has found
تم استغلال الطاقات
that if we do not use or utilize the power of women, we are losing a large section of the possible economic gains, where we can see, for instance, in North Africa, if women are more integrated within the jobs market, we're going to see an increase in 30% economically when it comes to North Africa.
السؤال الثاني تفضلي.
أنا بشكر حضرتك جدا على الدعوة.
اتفضل.
شكرا جزيلا. شكرا سيادة الرئيس. يعني طبعا أنا بشكر حضرتك اللي بيحصل في مصر على مدار ال7 سنين حاجة يعني
We've seen the last 7 years great changes within Egypt, and we are very proud of this, and we would like to thank you for all these achievements. And the Prime Minister as well as the other ministers who have been working around the clock to make a better Egypt. I work within the car production sector, and we would like to better things. You asked us to try to develop the infrastructure of the automobile sector in Egypt, and we're working on this diligently. And we will, God willing, create an electric car here in Egypt very soon in coordination with different agencies.
بصفة إقليمية أو دولية بتكلم على مصر وإزاي إحنا
here locally and we can develop the electric car.
بيئة الاستثمار.
Can you tell us about the investment environment in Egypt?
يعني شرفتني وعينتني في مجلس الشيوخ من سنة فبرضه شغالين جاهدين في
we are trying to produce laws that are helping in encouraging investments like you've seen in the Shura Council when it comes to laws that are encourage investments.
التنفيذي في شركتي أملك واحكم بس صعب جدا 1500 واحد وفي مؤسسات.
In my company I have 1,500 employees, and it was a very difficult situation to be able to manage this number of employees, so I can only imagine what it's like to manage an entire nation.
يعني لو يعني نتكلم حضرتك في موضوع البيئة التنفيذية. البيئة التنفيذية.
Can you tell us about the investment environment?
شكرا جزيلا. السؤال الثالث والأخير. السؤال الثالث والأخير. تفضلي.
أنا تعليق مش سؤال. حضرتك ذكرت كلمة
This is not a question, it is something I would like to say. Me as someone, not just as a minister, but a member of a United Nations agency, we spoke about corruption, and Egypt is a model when it comes to inviting, about a month ago, inviting 154 different countries to discuss how to combat corruption around the world, and how there are anti-corruption campaigns, and we spoke about how we can combat it in the private and public sector. We thank you so much for your efforts there, and there is a lot of efforts done in Egypt when it comes to corruption, in addition to illegal migration.
الموضوع الثالث والمهم ان مصر استمرت.
And the third subject is in the last 2 years we have created different centers around the nation to help rehabilitation centers to help people get rid of drug abuse habits. And despite COVID, we've been able to provide different services to these citizens, helping them. And in addition to different agencies when it comes to women's health.
شكرا فخامة الرئيس. أنا أحمد مكي بشركة بنيا فايبر مصر. طبعا مفيش خلاف إنه التحول الرقمي هو عنوان العصر.
Digital transformation is the future, and the infrastructure when it comes to technology is what is important. We can see the President supporting the initiatives when it comes to digital transformation, and we thank you for this. And this doesn't happen in any country unless the head of state is supporting these initiatives. And this is like any kind of difficulty. The sector can face a lot of difficulties, and it needs a certain push from the government and the head of state. And we thank you for this. And we can see that Egypt is a good model when it comes to digital transformation. We've seen strides within this sector. We are a good example of how we managed to create digital transformation as a company. And you can see that they were a good model when it comes to digital transformation where different countries can actually take us as a model for it.
في أفريقيا خلال 10 سنين الجاية مش هيقل عن 2 تريليون دولار.
The transformation of the digital transformation in the African continent in the next 10 years will cost $2 trillion. This, I believe, is an opportunity and also a responsibility for Egypt. And I think that Egyptian companies should take part in this. And we see support from the government when it comes to pushing the private sector to help and fund these projects in the African continent. What is the role of Egyptian companies when it comes to funding these projects? We've done this in Egypt, and we hope to do this in the African continent as well. This is despite COVID-19. And if it wasn't for the digital transformations, things would have been different here in Egypt.
طب خلوني اتكلم على يعني
Let me talk about
فرص
opportunities. During the first question, are we ready as Egypt ready to be a regional hub when it comes to energy? We are working towards this. We started in about 4 years ago to do this and be regional hubs for energy. And we would like to tell our friends in Europe that we are going to do this. We have 2 different projects that will provide a seed for the possibility of being regional energy hubs. Is Egypt able to do this and provide Europe with its energy needs, even if it was partially? Yes, we believe so. And are we working towards this? Yes, we are. What are we doing right now is creating an infrastructural electrical connection between Egypt and certain areas like Cyprus and gas pipes as well that link Egypt to Europe and providing transportation for the natural gas. And we have the infrastructure for it. And through the Mediterranean region conference, we've put different points that are important to do with the energy sector and how we can provide this and export it. Egypt only lives, or the Egyptians only live on only 10% of its land, which gives us an opportunity where we are able to create renewable energy farms on large swaths of land, whether it is solar power or wind power and even hydrogen power. We're very ready for this. And we're ready with the law and political will, and we are able to provide the services in addition to Egypt's stability and ability to do so. And when we talk about energy that will help in the growth of large economies, will take the energy from Egypt, they will look at stability and the importance of the stability of the nation when it comes to providing electrical energy. And I believe we've achieved this in the last few years. And I would like to tell everyone listening to me, when we had electrical problems, electricity problems in 2014, our hope or the people's hope was that we are only seeking to create renewable energy to provide the Egyptian nation with the electrical needs it has, trying to stop the gap between the electrical needs and the amount of people there. But this wasn't only our goal, but we also were looking forward to being exporters of energy towards Europe, not only in Europe, but in other countries like Sudan, Libya, and as well as Israel. With our infrastructure, we have reached a level of modernity and ability to create farms that are highly sophisticated and up to date. And the way I spoke with the government, that what is important is creating a strong infrastructure in Egypt should not be under par or subpar. In fact, it should be exactly like it is in large developing nations. We want to be competitors in the field of energy in Egypt. This isn't just a political will, and everyone is ready for all of this. And we exerted efforts in creating these infrastructures, and I think in the next 2 years we're going to see the reap the energy fields infrastructure, and being able to say in the next 2 years that we are able and willing to export our energy to all our neighbors in a technologically competitive way. We are trying to expand our scope as well, and all that's limiting us is just the amount of time. It's only a matter of time. The private sector is unable to provide the fast pace of changes that we've asked for when it comes to renewable energy. Obviously, this is to do with the pandemic as well. It has slowed things down a little bit, but it's going to take a bit of time. But we are ready and willing. We have the ability and infrastructure to export our energy, and we are ready for this, and we have the will for this, and we are moving forward. And it's not just us as a government, but everyone else has to have this will as well, whether it be our neighbors or the European Union. And the environmental impact of renewable energy is actually positive. It's something that is very good and important. And we are always looking to green economies. As for the women's empowerment, and women in Egypt know more than anyone that I am very supportive of women, and the men in the Egyptian government feel like they have more support rather women have more support within the government than the men. I have a lot of respect and I have a lot of interest in supporting the Egyptian women because they have the ability to do a lot. We don't want to show differences or have women who are less empowered. I don't want any differences when it comes to the wage or differences in salaries. You can see even in government or public sectors, there is no difference between the women's salaries and the men's. We don't see this at all in the public sector. 49% of the workforce is female. Or maybe we'll say 45% of the workforce in Egypt is women. We have a lot of programs when it comes to women's health, like the family programs and rural programs. And I would like to say that women had an important role and during two different phases. The first phase is the change phase, where she, as a woman, Egyptian woman, was there in the forefront saying, no, we will not allow Egypt to change in a way that is negative. And and they are the ones that move to the Egyptian street. And the second phase is when it came to the reconstruction or the economic measures that were taken to rebuild the economy. We've seen in the last 50 years the Egyptian leadership worried about the possible rebuilding of the economy because they were afraid of the Egyptian people and their reaction towards it. But when I decided to help improve the economy and reach our sustainable goals, I asked the Egyptian women to support me in this, and I knew that they would be the ones who will push us forward. And I asked them to help me promote the Egyptian economy. What we have today is based on every Egyptian's efforts and support, but especially women who supported us in our efforts. Here in Egypt, we are very concerned when it comes to empowering women. We're doing our best to do so. Moving on to the automobile sector. And speaking about how the problems that may face handling all of this. In the last 3 years, we need the private sector and to support us, and we need them necessarily in helping growing the economy and helping us also in a way of how to coordinate and lead when it comes to moving the economy. How can we do this today? In all the different projects that we've seen, we are willing to have the private sector be partners with us. Let's say, for instance, a project that will cost 1 billion Egyptian pounds. We are willing. We are willing, if you want, to help have these projects succeed. We are willing to be partners with all of you, and we are willing to help financially as well in supporting these private sector companies. We are a country with 100 million people. The number of young people within the 100 million is almost 60% of the Egyptian country. And this means that the workforce is a large workforce with millions of people who can join the workforce every day.
بيخرج لسوق العمل ما يقرب من تقريبا 800,000 مليون.
Almost annually 800,000 new people who go into the workforce. How are these people going to work? So we need to provide job opportunities for them, so they can join the labor market. We need to learn that we are responsible for these people and providing jobs for these people. So any private sector that wants to create a project, we support you. And we can also be partners with you and help you grow and provide jobs. When it comes to the automobile industry or fiber optics,
هو مش عارف كان مين قال حاجه كريمه تصور ان هي فقط عباره عن بناء مساكن او كده. لا حاجه كريمه ده مشروع.
Someone thought that the Decent Life Initiative is only about building housing units, but this is actually a fully integrated program that includes different and vast sectors. We're talking about infrastructure, including transportation, telecommunications, and the Egyptian countryside didn't have the available infrastructure when it comes to telecommunications.
انت بتعمل بنية اتصالات ل 60% أو 50%.
We created about 60 telecommunications infrastructure for about 60% of the country who live in the countryside, and this is achieved only with your help.
أبو غالي وغفور كل اللي موجود يعني. المهم أنا عايز أقول لكم.
What I want to say is that Egypt needs everyone who is faithful and willing to help and support the growth of the Egyptian economy. The challenges are large. Dr. Hala Said, the minister, spoke about corruption and how this is a government and the Egyptian nation's will to combat it. This is the Egyptian nation's will, and we will not stand down or accept corruption within Egypt. People may think that this is just a politician's way of talking, but no, this is not the case. We want to get rid of all forms of corruptions and get rid of everything that is negative, that stops it from growing. And we know quite well that corruption corruption is as much terrorism is, and it destroys just like terrorism does. So this is the will of the nation, that we want to get rid of all forms of corruption and allow spaces for people who are loyal to the nation. And Egypt's growth will not be able to do anything other than that. As for illegal immigration,
كلكم موجودين هنا وانا قلت الكلام ده يمكن النهارده في المحاكاه بتاعت حقوق الانسان.
I spoke about this today earlier. We have 6 million refugees here in Egypt, but we didn't allow them to immigrate legally to other countries through the Mediterranean, for instance, taking risky boats and risking their lives. But no, it's not how we want things here in Egypt. We don't even have refugee camps, but they live amongst us and with us and are not isolated like we see in other areas with refugees who live in camps. We have 6 million refugees here in Egypt. They are here in Egypt, and they are not in camps. If you want to see them, they are everywhere here in Egypt. They work, they live, they own houses. They are part and integrated of the society.
طبعا مراكز العلاج وده آفة بتعاني منها كل الدول. بس أنا برضو عايز أقول لكم وإحنا بنتكلم على مراكز العلاج والعلاج من الإدمان وكده.
Also, I'd like to talk about rehabilitation centers when it comes to drug abuse. This is something that is a problem worldwide. Drug abuse is a problem worldwide. And this destroys any country's future if we allow widespread and rampant drug abuse, if we don't help the people who are addicted to drugs.
الناس اللي هيقدر يقدم نفسه كمواصفات فنيه ومواصفات ماليه هيعمل ايه؟ هيشتغل كده. فانتوا احنا داعمين لكم ان احنا ندي الفرصه في مصر الاول ثم طبعا مع أشقائنا في إفريقيا اللي عايز.
We're going to work on Egypt, and then in the private sector we're going to work on Egypt, and then once we are where we want to be, we will continue to help our brothers in Africa.
شكرا سيادة الرئيس. في ختام هذه الجلسة المثمرة.
السيدة رفعت ايديها وأنا ما أقدرش.
مساء الخير، أنا اسمي ماي جبالة، أنا بشتغل في هيئة إنقاذ الطفولة Save the Children.
I work for Save the Children. It's an international body that works in 120 different countries, and we work specifically on child or children's problems. Now, we've been in Egypt for 40 years as an agency with our local partners and with the different organizations and bodies, including the United Nations. And when it comes to protection of children, when it comes to health and providing health as well as education and security from violence against children. I think that the Decent Life Initiative is in line with our goals as Save the Children in providing a proper life for these children who are underprivileged. Yes, so we've seen that there has been support when it comes to supporting the youth, Egyptian youth, and providing them with what is necessary for them to grow. And I also want to thank the cooperation, the ministries and bodies in different ministries in Egypt that supported the kaful system, which is similar to the adoption system seen in Western nations. We've taken strides in this. We've had successful models of this, and we want to give our expertise from Egypt when it comes to takaful and kafala of the young children or adoption properties, and the possibility of creating education that is of good and high quality.
ما عندهاش
اتكلمي زي ما انت عايزه.
شكرا شكرا يا فندم. انا مش عايزه اطول على حضرتك، انا عايزه بس اشرح ان احنا ما عملناش ده كله كهيئه انقاذ الطفوله.
We haven't done this as Save the Children alone, but with partners in the public and charity sectors, and with the support of the government as an important partner.
بس استغل الفرصه دي
And I want to use this opportunity and highlight what you said earlier today, and when it comes to the importance of the human resources when it comes to changing, especially when it comes to the youth and the children, to be there and help us in creating a space for them to be able to provide or show their ideas, especially when it comes, for instance, in COP27. Can you give them space to actually give us ideas about what they see for climate change and the future of climate change, and what their ideas are to save or conserve the climate? It will teach them how to be able to take decisions when it comes to their future, and also empower them. And we also saw the Prime Minister talking about this. Save the Children is working on an international campaign to support COP27 in helping it achieve all of its goals. And we're here just to say that we are here to support you as much as we can, everyone in civil society organizations as well. I would like to thank you so much for everything you've said.
بس كان لابد طبعا ان انا اديها الفرصه انها تتكلم وكده، والحقيقه كل المساهمات اللي اتقالت النهارده
everything that was said today has been something that is supportive and has helped us. I want to talk about the kafala programs. In the last 2 years, we've seen differences and discussions when it comes to the kafala system and how we can improve it and help support the children who are up for adoption. And there have been certain priorities, and they were very challenging for a lot of people to meet these criteria. But now we talked about we have to give opportunities to people who may not be able to reach these criteria, but it has seen, we've seen from it a lot of positive results that has helped both the people who are adopting and the children.
وما بين ان احنا نخلي الرعايه ديت داخل اسره.
Even if all the orphanages are up to par and reach these criteria, it's still not like living with a family, and it means that the mental health of these children are much better when it comes to housing them in different homes with families. We want to provide the opportunities for orphans to be able to live within the takaful system with a more positive environment when it comes to the family. There is no way that an orphanage can provide what a family can provide when it comes to emotional support for children. In a home, they will be a family supporting them. The results are we can also give this as a model for the rest of the world. The second point is, what are we going to do in the COP27 conference? We are very serious about it when it comes to preparing for the conference. We have started preparing for it since I was in Glasgow. For the conference itself, we as a country and as government bodies have worked hard for the conference to be completely ready for everything that we could do possibly when it comes to the COP27 conference. The point about having young people be part of the COP27 conference, this is not something that we take lightly, but it is something that we are actually thinking about, and how it could be a part of the conference itself that helps it become more successful and positively impact the COP27 by voicing the young people's thoughts and ideas. We are very keen on doing this. But now we're looking for a form in which we can integrate this part of the conference and how it's going to look in the conference itself. And it will hopefully be there in the end of this year when it comes to COP27.
أنا اسمي إيريني استمالك، نائب رئيس الجيرمان انترناشونال كوبريشن إيفاو، وسعيدة جدا إنه النهاردة جت سيرة برنامج مصر تستطيع اللي أنا بتشرف إن أنا أنتمي للمجموعة اللي خارجة منه. في البداية بحب أشكر حضرتك جدا وأشكر الحكومة على الإنجازات اللي بتحصل، اللي بتسهل لنا إحنا وإحنا برا أو المصريين في الخارج اللي بنحاول نوصل صورة مصر، وكان لينا سنين طويلة بنشتغل على ده. الإنجازات اللي بتحصل النهاردة على الأرض بتسهل علينا الأداء ده، أو إن إحنا نوصل الصورة الصح عن مصر برا أو في المؤسسات اللي إحنا بنشتغل فيها. الحقيقة أنا شخصيا بقالي فترة طويلة لأن أنا بنتمي لمجال البيئة والهندسة الصحية، بشتغل على فكرة الصناعة، إن إحنا ننقل أكبر قدر ممكن من الصناعات اللي في الجزء ده لجوه مصر، وبالتحديد بنظام التصنيع المشترك، إنه الشركات تيجي وتصنع هنا بشكل أكبر. يمكن الموضوع ده محتاجين إنه يبقى له إطار محدد أكبر من كده شوية، بحيث إنه التصنيع ده يكون مثلا بالمشاركة مع الحكومة. إحنا عملنا
like partnerships with the private sector and the public sector when it comes to creating industry. Like for instance the military production ministry, we wanted to partner with them. We've seen that certain companies may have a few problems when it comes to showing our know-how.
طيب أنا يعني عايز اقول لك ان احنا اولا بشكرك على
I would like to thank you for all the questions and everyone who has talked to us and supported us as a government in trying to tell us how well we're trying to exert efforts. When it comes to coordinated efforts between private and public sector, it's an effort that we provide, and it is when it comes to the highest levels in different ministries as well. In all the countries that I went to, I would always meet with the major company CEOs and talk about how we can provide opportunities and ways to make things or business easier for the private sector in coming and investing here in Egypt. And we spoke about how Egypt is an ideal place where it looks over into the Mediterranean, and we have different ports where we can provide export and import of products. It's a way to incentivize these private sector companies. And we would tell them that we are willing to support you in any way and any form possible to help you grow your investments here in Egypt.
الكلام ده قلنا لهم وانا بقوله لك عشان تبقى انت مطمنه على ان احنا بنتحرك في هذا الموضوع.
I want you to feel at ease that we are moving towards this support. These major companies, they have their own policies and the research that gives it the way of where it will be in the world. Briefly, we don't want anyone to come here in Egypt and think that we want to take something or part of their bodies by force, but this is not what we want. In fact, we want to support everyone who wants to do business here in Egypt, and we'll support them in any way possible, whether they're international investors or local investors.
الآثار أعتقد اللي ترتبت على كوفيد إن يمكن
one of the pandemic problems that we've seen is that international companies may regress because of the pandemic, and investment opportunities may regress slightly because of the economic repercussions of the pandemic, like we've seen in Europe and other developing nations. And this gives us an opportunity where we can propose different projects. And we're willing to help and support any private sector business when it comes to creating different projects.
عشان تعمل في مصر مش بس عشان تحافظ على النهو بتاعها، لا أي معايير أخرى، أي التزامات أخرى. وأتصور إن البيئة التشريعية دكتور مصطفى الموجودة
and the environment of the laws being produced is helping in this and supporting the private sector investments. And I'm very, very happy to meet you today and all the positive support that I got from everyone here today. And again, I would like to thank you and provide my best regards to everyone here.
شكرا جزيلا لكم سيادة الرئيس، شكرا جزيلا على سعة صدركم وإعطاء الفرصة والمداخلات للجميع. شكرا جزيلا لكم سيادة الرئيس.